Good morning. Welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. Today we are looking at Genesis chapter 24. So we kind of go from a place of grief yesterday with Sarah passing away to now we are preparing ourselves for a marriage to happen. We see some interesting things happening in this particular chapter that might not be what we're used to in today's culture. So, what we discover is that Abraham asks his servant to go find a wife for his son because they're in a time in which arranged marriages are done. And what Abraham asks is that the servant finds a wife who is not among the foreigners that they're among, but to go back to his home family. And it's common in this time and age for cousins to be married. The understanding of why this would happen is yes, there's a bit of keeping the wealth within the family. But also, in this time and age, it's a way to keep one's culture, one's traditions, one's rituals continuing on. It's that holding on to the legacy of who we are. It's how you pass down those traditions to the next generation. And you have to admit, like during this time of Christmas, this is one of those things that's really important for families. And so many people who don't know their history often crave this. There is a desire to share one's traditions. And that's why it was important for families to actually marry within families. It's so that they could keep that. And, if you think about it, like in my family, some of our traditions, putting up the tree, and my sister brought over this tradition to put a pickle on the tree. And yet, these are the memories. This is what makes our memories. And so we see that that's what is important here. It's important for families to be able to carry on who they are and to remind each other of who they are. And so where it might seem strange to us to marry a cousin, in Abraham's time, it is what helped them to keep their history alive and everything. So the servant has been asked to go find a cousin for Isaac to marry. And in the process, this servant is like, well, I don't want to be, held accountable if I can't find some woman to come and live with you. Because he's like, can I take Isaac to live with her? And Abraham's like, nope, the promise was that this land, this foreign land we're in, is offered to us. So I need her to come to Isaac. And so this poor servant is like, oh, please, like, what if I can't make this happen? And Abraham says, don't worry, if you cannot bring a woman here, I'm not going to hold you accountable. And so they do this ritual oath in where the servant puts his hand under Abraham's thigh. And that is a way for them to make their oath and their promise that the servant's going to try his best. However, he will not be put to shame or put to death because he's not able to find a wife. And so the servant kind of goes forward with this blessing that the angel of the Lord is going before him. And he ends up, of course, in the area where his brother is. And he has with him, it says, 10 camels. And they take a rest by this well. And they just wait. They're going to wait and see who shows up. Because, of course, that's the proper place to go because the women carry the water. So, it's like, the camels are thirsty and he's thirsty. But the reality is, this is where the women hang out. So, he takes rest and he's waiting for a very specific offer when encountering this young girl. And he's waiting for her to also offer to take care of the camels. And so now that might not seem like a big thing, but the amount of water that camels will drink, this poor girl, Oh well. So, anyways, he waits there. He sees Rebecca coming by. And so he then approaches her. May I have a sip of your water? And she says, absolutely. Here's a sip of my water. And by the way, let me water your camels until they want to drink no more. And it's a very tiny little verse here, but it means a lot. Verse 21 of chapter 24. The man, being the servant, gazed at her in silence to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. And so when the camels had finished drinking, the man realized it was it. So he probably sat there a good couple of hours just trying to figure this out, because it would have taken her that long to do that. This was not a tiny task that she got herself involved to. I mean, she is showing a level of hospitality, of graciousness of heart and compassion. I mean, honestly, I think most people nowadays would be like, you can water your own camels, or you know what I mean? But no, she then, that is kind of like the sign. But, the servant's still a little unsure, because now he's got to convince her family to let her come with him. And so she, of course, shows the proper hospitality, and her brother shows the proper hospitality of inviting him to their house. They provide food for the camels. They provide a beautiful banquet for him. And this guy, he is skipping through all of the protocols. For somebody who wants to hold on to tradition, he's also skipping some of it. So that kind of, to me, shows that it depends on intent. It depends on the situation, where tradition can be helpful and sometimes it's not helpful. And so I think that's something that we have to learn in our own families, of when can you skip the protocols and when do you need to honor them. So in this sense, the servant goes, you know what? Instead of getting down to eating, he goes, I gotta stop. I need to just tell you why I'm here. It's very important that you know what. So we gotta skip this eating thing. And he puts the proposal out there. And the family actually responds very quickly. And so again, what we're seeing is this sense of obedience. And I mean, I don't want to... Using the word submission in this context needs to be heard in the correct way. I'm not saying that a woman is submitting to a man. That's not what's happening here. It's a family submitting to God's will. And so, because it's, I mean, yes, Rebecca wants to go, but she has choice. She's absolutely choosing this. They, in a sense, they give her that sense of, will you do this? And I mean, the family's behind it, which means she's supported, she's being honored, but she still has decision in this. What she's submitting to is God. That's who she's submitting to in this. And we need to honor that. That is beautiful, because she is playing just as much of a part in God's promises as Abraham, as Sarah, as Isaac. She has to say, I want to be a part of this. She's not being forced to. She's choosing to. And whenever we choose to be a part of another family, when we choose to include other people, it means we get new traditions. We have new rules, we have new ideas, we have new context, but we have to choose to be a part of that. And we choose more than just a spouse. We choose a family. And I think it's important to recognize in here. This isn't just something she's being forced into. So anyways, the family all agrees, and here again, the custom is that she has a betrothal time in which she can spend about 10 days with her family to prepare herself and to get everything put together. And in this sense, the servant again goes, this is the one time I'm going to ask you to skip that. I want you to skip that. And I want to take her now. Good. Take her right now. Get her home. And again, they ask her, are you willing to do this? And she goes, yes, I am. And what we should immediately think is not like, oh my goodness, she's submitting to this. No. What we should be reminded of is when God asked Abraham to leave. And what did Abraham do? He went. He didn't wait. He didn't try to get things in order. He went. We are seeing the exact same faithfulness and trust in Rebecca that Abraham had. And that is to be celebrated. I think that is beautiful. And so she gets up and goes and everything, and they take her on over to the new, land and everything. And Isaac is out walking in the field, and so they consummate their marriage in Sarah's tent, and they are now. And what we find is it says here. I think it's important for us to see this. It's the very last verses of chapter 24. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah. She became his wife, and he loved her. He loved her. And then also this gave him comfort in his own mother's death, it says. And so there's this mutual relationship that's being uplifted in here. And we're going to see a few relationships that are not so uplifting. And we're going to see they have tension in their marriage a little bit later. I'm not saying it's all perfect or anything. But there's this mutuality to the relationship. And that's what's being uplifted in our scripture, and especially in this one. I think it's important to recognize how integral Rebecca's decisions are to God's promises. I mean, really, she has that's a beautiful thing. And of course, she's going to bear the son of the tribes. And so we know that she has a great role to play. And I think it goes to show us how everybody does play a part, and they choose. And this word submission, I think we take out of context sometimes, because it's a beautiful thing when we can submit to God's will. It doesn't mean we're submitting to another human being. We're submitting to God's will. And how do we do that? How do we care and love for other people through that? And yes, sometimes it means that we have to submit to other people, but it's not because of them, it's because of God. And we just have to make sure we have that in the right context and in the right order. And so I hope that brings you to a deeper place in your faith today. Maybe gives you encouragement about the path you are on. And maybe it gives you joy knowing that you really are submitting to God's will, not your own. And so that's our devotion for today. And I thank you for joining me. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.